Okay, 7:01, I'll call the meeting to order. The meeting is duly constituted by having been advertised and a quorum being present. First item on the agenda is adoption of that agenda. May I have a motion? And a second, any discussion? Go ahead.
I was going to defer to Peter where I might bring up the, let's call it tree committee, council decision on tree committee recommendation.
I would suggest that that be addressed under business arising from the minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, that's going to come out of the minutes.
10. Okay.
Under unfinished business, I would like to, no, in fact, scratch that. I already thought of a better way to do that. In terms of council and staff reports, we don't really need to specifically call out. Ron, I'm hoping to hear at least just a 5-sentence report on your attendance at the Cedar Sky Clean Air Council.
No, I can do that in 2.
Okay, fine, but we don't need to add that sort of level of detail to the agenda, right, Peter? That will just come in our council reports.
Well, we can note it.
Okay.
That,
Okay, so Councillor M to...
Well, I've got 4 things. One's your TransLink, the other one's the volunteer week.
Oh, you got them all?
Private action, I got the whole.
Okay, fine. Let's just make sure that we don't forget
I have
that.
45 seconds for a 4.
Okay, great.
So that's under council reports?
Yeah,
Okay, we'll do under
8C.
council. Thank you.
Okay, anything further? Okay, the motion's on the table. All in favour? Opposed? That carries. And next is public participation. Are there any?
I mentioned to Sheldon that it was free drink night last Tuesday, the first Tuesday of the month.
Subterfuge, yeah, that always, sometimes works, not always. Okay, so...
The idea is they bring free drinks?
And I'll just point out to council that the text of the agenda has been slightly augmented by the text that you see there, to sort of make it a little more accessible to the public when they're reviewing the agenda. So if the public participation is 2 minutes per person, totaling 10 minutes maximum, and public delegations the same. Just so that just to make it a little more user friendly. So there being no delegations, we'll move on to review and approval of the minutes of the prior meeting. These are in front of you starting on page 5. I don't believe that I had anything. So can I have a motion to approve those minutes? Thanks. And a second? Thanks. Ron?
2 seconds. No change, but while we have a second, if my colleagues could look at the trees as they're going through the business at hand. Take a look at page 8, the trees use and landscape committee application piece as we're going through, because I'm going to come up to that as item number 10 on business arising.
Yeah, good. That's going to be referred to, so that's on page 8.
If
Just
you're
remember that
falling
it's there.
asleep on the fire chief report then.
Okay, good. So there's a second motion on the table to approve the minutes. No amendments. All in favour and opposed. That carries. And we will now move on to business arising from the minutes, starting with item number 1.
Sorry, before we get into item number 1, which also pertains to previous minutes besides the ones from just last week.
Yes.
I take it that Councillor McLaughlin would like to raise a matter with respect to the minutes from last week under business arising. So perhaps that should be done before we go through the other older items.
Very good. Ron?
Fine, so then what I thought was going to be 10 is now number 1. So to my colleagues on page 8, and I'll just take 30 seconds to so they can quickly scan the verbatim of last. So that's page 8 of 134, top third. Okay, so that's the quick refresher, so there's no confusion that this was carried. So there has been some emails between me and the other tree committee members and the chair. Some to do with the stuff that's later on in the agenda, some to do with the council decision on this. And I see that, well, I didn't pick them up earlier today. Peter's given me a copy of the last 2 emails, primarily between he and council and the chair of the tree committee, that council may just, and I'm going to read verbatim from the matter, and I'll give it to Sean afterwards. Council may reconsider the decision from the last minute if desired. A council member would need to move to reconsider the item. Okay. The basis of rationale could be that there was additional information that council did not have an opportunity to consider, which I know to be the case. If the motion is seconded and carried, then staff should be instructed to bring back a report on the matter for council to discuss at the next meeting, including all the additional information. And I think my colleagues have already seen this. I believe, in my view, that there's issues with the tree committee and with the staff recommendation, and there's some other stuff which should be documented for all of the council members to see. I think for the sake of another 2 weeks for this to come back, for council to confirm the decision or make a different one, it would be wise to do so, and I would put that motion forward.
Okay, thank you. Second? Thanks. That's the second motion. Any? Can you give us an understanding of what the issues are, or do you simply want to go with the motion that staff prepare a report?
2 things. I believe we'll find that perhaps what was presented by our resident was polar to what he told the chair of the tree committee. That's an integral part of our decision making, I believe, and then staff has also brought some other items up, and I think it's also a time to pause and refresh here that council made a decision which is a prerogative, but I think it would behoove us to respect staff and the tree committee and revisit this stuff.
Okay, thanks. Peter?
I think that there was also an arborist report that council didn't have the opportunity to review, so that would be another reason.
Okay, thanks. So the motion is essentially for all the above reasons to ask for a staff report for next meeting. Is that correct? So
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
the second motion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any
Well,
further?
the motion is to reconsider the matter pursuant to section 35 of the procedure bylaw. So.
Which is new information.
And then subsequent to that is staff is to bring back a report.
Okay, so so the motion is a 2-part one: a reconsideration and request for the report. Any further discussion? All in favour? Opposed? That carries. Okay, thanks. So you can hack it for next meeting, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fine.
Oh, sorry, there was one other aspect to my email to council and to the chair committee with respect to this matter, and that was whether or not, I mean, there are some issues surrounding this whole matter with respect to topping, with respect to ongoing maintenance of top trees, things that aren't really covered off in our bylaw as it stands. We don't really have policies with respect to those things. So those were some of the things that I wanted to highlight in the report to come back to council. It may be that council may wish to also have the input of the tree committee with respect to those kinds of issues. So that whether that's something you want to also consider at this time, or whether that's something that you want to put up, it's up to you.
Well, there's no deadline on that request for report. Is this a time critical issue in terms of the actual trees involved?
The applicant doesn't get her cut letter.
Fine. Okay, so yeah, that may indeed be the case. And as you probably know, I was away for the last week in other municipalities, and boy was I shaking the bushes, literally and figuratively. And so I have a lot of input on Trees, Views and Landscapes Committee bylaw provisions.
So maybe what I will endeavor to do is to structure the report in a way that allows council to consider some of the things that perhaps ought to have been considered first time round in order to make a decision or revisit the decision that was made, as well as then the other aspects that you know may require further research and input from others. So maybe it'd be sort of an A and B kind of report.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, just to give you an inkling, for example, there's issues with private trees blocking people's views, and how the city of Laguna Beach handles it is city sponsored mediator that sits down with both parties, and apparently the success rate is close to 100% in terms of getting people what they want in terms of improved views, yet maintaining people's very often in their back lot, not their front lot, surprisingly, or not surprisingly. But so these problems have been solved in terms of views. So, I mean, we've always just sort of deferred that the views and landscapes aspects of the bylaw. So maybe we can start getting them going. But yeah, I think that's right. So maybe it comes in two pieces. Fred?
Well, I would like to know if we can get some geotechnical advice about the idea of clear cutting any section to see about soil disruption, because that to me is an integral part of the whole issue.
Specific to each recommendation, or more generically?
Generically, if we're going to have a policy on it, I think there should be some geotechnical advice about removing mature trees or not so mature trees and the impact on the soil conditions around it.
Well, so for example, I know the village is clear cut, or close to clear cut, the bend just north of just uphill from the fire hall. Eventually, those were little saplings, 6-inch saplings. Eventually, they're going to die, and the roots holding the soil will no longer be holding there. I presume we overseed or something now. These are all things that need to be addressed in whether it's a policy or a bylaw. I don't know, which you very well know. So we don't need to belabor the point now. So I think we'll look forward to that report. Okay, thanks, Peter. So shall we move on to the legacy business arising items, starting with number 1, which is a list outlining what council would like to see on the House Sound Community Forum agenda. I see council is the owner of this project. How do we want to handle this? As you know, I've asked for some photographs. NICE applied them. My intention there was to put together sort of a PowerPoint. We get 20 minutes somewhere in the agenda of the House Sound Community Forum as the host to say this is Lions Bay. But I want to be sure we say what is Lions Bay.
I'm sure you could wing that, Carl, quite frankly, but the event needs a theme.
Okay, there you go. You see, you're absolutely right.
That would be good too.
So?
Biogas. I mean, I'm not sure what the theme is.
Yeah, I don't.
I mean, or what everybody would like to do. I don't know.
Well, I mean, at a very high
what's the
level,
driver?
at a high level, I've asked for the agenda to be far more community focused than environmentally focused, as it has been up to now. So, sure, I'm sure we will get some reports in from the Biosphere Initiative and from the Urban National Park Initiative, but the same amount of time as everybody else. I've asked that communities be given apparently this is the best practice these days, 360 seconds, that's 6 minutes, to do their spiel. Previously they were allowed 2 minutes, and I found that was too short, because to me the most valuable part of the forum was hearing what other communities were doing. I didn't need an hour on the Biosphere Initiative, worthy as it is. So to answer your question, if it's a theme, it's going far more community by community, this is what we're doing type of stuff. So we don't have to answer this question, and perhaps, Peter, you want to just change the owner there to me, and I'll be at everybody for their input.
I think that it's a little over a month to the event, which will be a blink. I think that, we were there for 3 hours, thereabouts, so, you do the communities, you do the Lions Bay thing, that killed an hour and small, so the greater we, have got an hour and a half to figure out what we're going to let people talk about.
Oh, I see where you're going with that. Ruth has that pretty much under control.
Okay.
I asked her to invite the Sea to Sky Gondola people. I asked her to invite BC Ferries. I asked her to invite BC Hydro. So people can get more of a sense of what government and quasi-government organizations are doing, rather than sort of green focused. If you read the charter of the forum, it's so that communities can talk to each other, because we don't have a forum other than this one, because we're all in other different regional districts.
Carl, I don't want to dominate on this one, but this last time we're going to get the chance during this council's term for this showpiece thing. Were you? And if Ruth is doing this, that's good to assist you. You're the one that's going to largely front council and say yes or no to however it gets going. Are you thinking of, because you mentioned the Sea to Sky Gondola, and they also come up in the climate action but chose not to attend or participate, so were you thinking of having a significant private enterprise piece as a speaker?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd gotten my thinking gotten that far, to be honest. I think
Okay.
more these people are members of the community, you know, whether it's private enterprise or not. You know, certainly the gondola, for example, is driving a huge amount of traffic. You know, as they sat down with us and just to use them as an example, I don't even know if they've been able to accept the invitation given schedules. But they never anticipated the kind of demand that they've seen, which is they thought they'd take the passing trade up to Whistler. Well, it turns out they're a destination. People go there and then turn around. Well, those people all come past us, and you only need to see the size of the parking lot and know that the average visit is something like 2 hours to work out the increase in traffic.
Very good. Okay, I think from my perspective, you've got the ball there with staff's assistance.
Okay.
Members.
Let's leave it there.
I was just gonna say, maybe BC Transit, given the current
They're on the list.
consultation process.
They're on the list for invitation. Although now that you mention it, I just want to reconfirm that. Okay, so moving on to parking plan initiatives, I'd say that one's well in hand between me, Nye, and Peter. So unless you want to hear anything more than that, I think we're good.
If I can move on to item 3, then
Yep.
Shauna keeps me posted, so as long as that's the case, that's fine.
Anything new happened since last time?
We've reached out to Safeway in a more formal way. My letter and the representation was vetted by them and off to their local executive late last week, I guess.
That's great. Thanks. That's good. Peter, next one's yours.
Andrew's been away, so I haven't had a chance to go over that with him.
Fine. Ron?
Nothing to report on Canada Day.
Okay. Volunteer week?
I think the big piece on that one is staff has taken it over. Thank you, staff.
So where we're at with that is we've managed to, thanks to the good graces of the Boy Scouts?
Cubs, I think.
Cub Scouts, have given up their time slot on Wednesday afternoon so that we can have it on Wednesday, April 26th from 4:30 to 6:30, hosting a reception in Broughton Hall, inviting all volunteers. And I think it would be, one of the things we talked about was, and apparently was happening in past years, is volunteers, if they wish, can set up a sign-up table so that public who come to pay their respects to all the volunteers might also be cajoled into signing up.
There's antique signage.
Mr. Mackey, you arrived late. Were you intending to address council, or are you just coming to hear everything we have to say?
I'm not exactly certain what's happening tonight, so.
Oh, you're just coming to listen? Because if you're going to do the public participation, that's gone by. But we're happy to,
Still at the end.
reopen it or at the end.
Perhaps at the end.
Okay, fine, thanks. I didn't want you sitting there thinking, when's my turn? Okay.
So April 26th, if you mark that on your calendars at that time, 4:30 in the afternoon
4:30 to what 30?
to 6:30.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of volunteers are firefighters, so that gives them the opportunity to go, and then they'll have their training night. So that was partly the reason for that time period. Whatever you do as councillors to beat the bushes and get people out to these things.
It was
Great.
April 26th, Peter?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Okay,
and we'll organize the reception part of it and snacks and so forth.
fantastic. Events committee involved?
No, they're volunteers to be appreciated.
Oh, I see.
Just as attendees.
Only as attendees. Okay, that's great. Okay, so good on that one. 7, the kayak.
Which has now made the news hour.
Yeah, which is now taken on a life of its own. Peter handled that while I was away. It's sort of it's a Modi problem. It's our problem. I don't think it's a policy issue before us at this stage anyway. But what we're going to do about kayakers, other than to say that there's no official condoning or allowing.
When I did speak to Modi about this particular circumstance, it was noted that the most recent event was actually uploaded by GoPro Corporation, and so Modi was going to think about taking that as an opportunity to contact GoPro and lean on them as in terms of this isn't permitted, it's not, you're promoting illegal activity, et cetera, et cetera. So.
Yeah, I'm sure they did that in all innocence, but it's, I mean, they have, the only thing I really object to is they're calling it a drainage ditch. It's not. It's a, it's a creek.
Carl, I think this one's a strike now.
I think it's a strikeout too, so if we can get rid of number 7 there, Sean. Number next, Mayor, to send, I did send the letter, and to my amazement got a response within days. Specifically from the regional director for the South Coast region, that he is working on it. More specifically than that, he was looking at the ins and outs of legislation, and I said, that's great, call on me for help, and you can be sure that I will be offering help before he calls on me. So I think that one can come out as well, and that's, I wouldn't say it's off to the races, but it's at least out of the starting blocks.
Good, number 9's a strike.
Okay, you got that, Sean? Number 9's out. And that is it for a business arising from the minutes. And I don't believe we added any, so that's pretty good. We got rid of 2. So we'll move on to unfinished business. Professor De Jong?
None.
None? Okay. We'll move on to staff reports. Peter, lay it on us.
This is good as the kayaking.
Is there a link to it? If we had a TV.
Okay, I-
We had a little
I
wager on
identified
it,
by-
on that comment.
Oh, really?
No, a TV would be smaller, it's bigger than 16
Who wins?
inches. I think we all do.
What was that in have to pay?
Okay, so this is a presentation of our new website as of today. It's still a work in progress, but yeah, we're going to run through sort of high-level stuff with you. Don't get too into the weeds, but anyways, we've got our usual colors, image. We've got contact directory. Departments. We've got an I want to find these various different things. Pay our taxes and utilities, attend the meeting, apply for any of these things. We can translate the page if we want to any language. It's a legal function. Our primary headings, we've kept it simple across the top. Under government, we've got village news, services, community, and public safety. On most of the pages there's a box like this, which is like a shortcut, and you can add anything that is related, providing a shortcut to things like customer service requests. So for example, if you go there now, and this will be on the website, people will be able to, if they want to report something to Public Works, for example, and they can click on any of these boxes here as well. So if we, what else we got here? I'm just going to go back to the home page for a sec. As I scroll down here on the home page, what we've got is news. So news this will soon say village news. Because it incorporates both news items, which would be like a media release, as well as village updates. So you see here, for example, this information, which just got released yesterday. And more on that later in the meeting. And then we also have, and then, yeah, this would be just village updates, previous, for example. Meetings, this would be, see the agenda, minutes are posted, this is tonight's meeting. Okay. And then we've got icons over here, which basically are intended to represent popular items, that be popular pages that people request a lot of. So let's just go over here to this. So this would be just a running list of news items. Mayor and council. There we are. Mayor's message. We'll
Oh,
stick.
great! My signature's front and center on the internet.
There you go.
Better not lose any checks.
Now you can sign all sorts of documents.
Can you
Everybody
see
can
the
sign.
municipal government, the staff?
So municipal government is just
Oh.
simply a blurb on municipal government, community charter, local government act,
Where's staff?
with links. We'll get there. Council and committee meetings. And we'll blurb on some of the committees. Public input. So people can see that if they want to appear as a delegation, what's involved, asking questions or comments. Let's go back up. So now just while I'm at it, so you see how these are accordions. So they drop down, you can click it, go back up again, which is what we've asked them to do with, instead of having these plus signs, we'll have it drop down, but right now you can't click it to make it go back up. So that'll work the same way as the accordions. Meeting calendar. You can go here and just click on the meeting and download the agenda audio if you want. Agendas and minutes. So we're going to filter for the year, and then there'll be a heading in this column as well for type of meeting. So we've got, for example, council infrastructure, and that would be tonight's agenda, for example.
Where's minutes?
Just last one.
So this is upcoming meetings.
Uh-huh.
So if we go past meetings, now we can see that there's some minutes. We've just sort of populated a few things here.
Yeah, sure, I'll get it.
Yeah.
And can we
So-
search these documents from here?
Yeah. So where you would search it from? So this is, let's go to this. So if you go up here, we might as well talk about this now. So here's our search here. So we have at this point we have an option with respect to the search bar. We can either have the search. So right now it's been set up with Google search. So Google has changed. They used to have it so you pay for this, so it just searches your website and searches all documents and content. They've changed their business model now, and it's free, but now it's populated with ads. So for example, if we put in that search bar, if we put desalination, we'll get a bunch of ads for desalination, and then we'll get anything. So right now it's pulling from our old website, because we haven't populated these things as our new website yet.
But it's
But it's pulling both PDFs and content.
but it's just crawling the old website, which is good enough.
So
There's lots of stuff there too on that topic.
and so the question is, do we want something that's going to have ads appear like that, or the alternative is we can. What is this saying? So this is a different methodology. This is a Drupal search. Where did it go?
You have to go, yeah, so type that word.
Yeah.
Desalination. See if they've thought about it.
Well, this is their recreational culture area, so I'll just go tennis. So right now, it's returning, because it's on content, it's returning only what it finds on the content of the website itself, not from any documents. So you actually have to click on documents. This is where it connected.
It's connected.
Is it? Oh yeah. So now you can see that we're seeing some PDFs as well as no, just the PDFs. It's not pulling the content, is it? It's just one or the other,
Yeah.
which isn't great.
It's not great at all. I would like to think that Google knows how to do search better than Drupal. So reprogramming Drupal. But let's not get hung up on the details. So, but I mean, just what you showed us there, I love that. But we don't have a choice anymore about these ads above the line.
No. Well, it used to be you could pay for the service. You wouldn't have this. Now you don't have a choice.
There's not even a choice.
So yeah, we're interested in having your feedback on which option you like in terms of search. I thought there was a way that we could set up the Drupal search so that it pulled both content and documents. Okay. Right. So let me just go back here. Rates, for example. Current chair in the room.
Wow. Good timing.
Yeah.
You planned that, right?
I wasn't going to go that page. So Mr. Mackey was here. So,
You got to see a page we weren't going to see.
so the bylaws will be set up in this fashion. So you'll be able to search right here, and it'll just be main bylaw download. So if you
Does that search bar up there also look at bylaws?
Oh yeah, it'll search our whole site.
The whole site, whatever.
Documents and content. So what'll happen is this will be a landing page. It'll be learn about the bylaw, and then you can download the bylaw itself.
So I know I'm doing all the asking here. So even the bylaws that are currently just optical scans back from the day when they were typewritten and stuff, they're indexed.
OCR'd them, and so they'll all be searchable.
That's fantastic.
Organizational structure, since we asked, this is what we look like right now. And another way of looking at it is this, which just shows the areas of responsibility for each department. There we go. Reports and documents library live over there as well. Under services, we've got the icon landing page, and then we can with corporate services, there's our office. We've got all our forms and applications. So everybody can just go here and they can download whatever they want. Highway encroachments, doing the permit, law enforcement, told about it, how to make a complaint, witness report if you want one, how to dispute the ticket, how it works, blurb, roads and bridges. Then we've got some coins that go with that. We've got maintenance. So let's go through. Oops, and page. Distribution. So here we've got information about our water, and we've also got a flow works graph. So you can see in real time supply and demand, how much usage.
Let me just see how far down that is. So that is 1, 2, 3 levels down. Okay. I'll have to be raised up. Let's just see that graph.
So
Is
we
that
could-
actually correct right now?
Yeah, if you mouse over the line, it'll give you the data points as you move along.
Yep. Supply, demand. Supply. How are you getting the supply number now?
Supply number is the same supply number that's on that spreadsheet of yours. It's from the water that's being drawn in to the system.
Multiplied by 24 hours a day.
Correct.
Yep.
So that's all real time.
This box will be
Shrunk
bit,
and
so that,
moved, so it's not hiding the graph. Correct.
and you know, if you're thinking that you'd like this to be a little bit more accessible, we could
Put a quick link on the
put a
left-hand
quick
side.
link up here,
Yeah.
or it can also, yeah, if you're on,
The home
say
page.
for example, yeah, it could be on the homepage. It
Or
could
in those
be-
related boxes, but
Yeah.
let's not worry too much about the flow around.
Yeah, no, just you mentioned. I was just looking for.
Although I will ask
Options.
now, does this have Google Analytics on every page, so you can tell where people are looking? How do we know what the demand for Google pages is?
That will be part of what is part of the deliverables for the
So-
website
Okay.
as well.
And so
So we will get into that.
let me just interject now.
I think we
This
still got
is
a couple
all
of
under a
options.
content management system.
Yeah, Drupal is the content management system.
Well, Drupal's a program.
A program.
They gave you, so we have a CMS. So you don't have to send this text to the programmer to
No,
insert.
no. This is all backup. We
And you can
And
set
we
up
log
menu
in.
structures as well.
Nye input
No,
most of this stuff.
We don't have the ability to add code, so we can't add code.
No, I understand.
But there is an editor that you can go in and edit these pages. All of these pages were created by staff.
The content in the page, but the menu structure, the names of the menu items,
That's part of the design of the website. So
Okay.
that's
that's fixed.
done. Water quality. Customer service request. There's a shortcut to that. We saw that earlier. And we've got building services as well. I'll just go back to waste for a second here. Under waste, we've got all these things that have content as well. We've got the pickup calendar, which April will be like that for the most part. Building services, we're still in the process of populating it, but that's what it'll look like. Fire rescue, we basically copied over everything from their website. Their website is now at the moment non-functional for different reasons. But we've got all their content here. And so same sort of thing. Andrew's been through all this and he's seen it all, and I think he's happy.
These are our pictures.
These are pictures that were on
Their
their
website.
website to begin with.
Just go back to. It says paid fire department. Is that true? Go back 2 pages. Just go back arrow. Yeah, Lions Bay Fire is it paid on call?
Paid on call, yeah.
Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, that's what you call it when you're on call and you receive some compensation for which they do. So, financial services, property taxes.
Where's your signature for all the web to see?
We can change out that picture.
The signatures are on the bylaws. That's where
I
I got
know.
it.
This will not make it completely easy.
And that had some external links as well. So, billing options, we've got community, the landing page, shortcut to the community calendar. We haven't really populated too much in there yet.
How do people get stuff on here?
And this will have a filter. So right now on our sorry, on our current website, this is what the community calendar looks like. It's just a PDF
It's fixed.
that's fixed. So we'll input all these kinds of things. So it'll look similar to this, but there'll be individual items entered. Parks and open spaces. Parks. These are drop downs about each one. Equal quality, so people can see what the equalized level is.
Excuse me.
Visitor information, telling people to leave their cars at home and take the bus. That's information about trails. Wildlife. Things that people need to be aware of. Invasive species. That's good information. And then just go to public safety. And so this part, you'll see the landing page isn't quite the same. We've got some text here, but that text will come off and it'll look, these will be flushed to the top. So this will be our new emergency notification system, Lions Bay Alert. So we've hooked up with EPAC Emergency Network, and we'll be launching that within the next month or so. And this will be a landing page, so people will be invited to come here. There'll be code that we'll get from EPAC, and they'll be able to sign up. They'll put in their neighborhood, and then we'll also have some subcategories as well for council, staff, fire department, SAR, ESS, groups that we may want to send out a notification to separately. And
When is that slated for? Just as a sorry.
well, it's kind of dependent on the website going on, because this is our landing page where people need to come to sign up. That'll take them to the EPAC site on a secure page where they'll be able to sign up to the EPAC site, and they can sign up for as many things as they want on that site. But obviously, we want them signing up for our notification system. So we've got an emergency information page with, we won't have it yet, but we'll have the emergency plan, community wildfire protection plan, emergency preparedness guide, all these kinds of things. Wildfire newsletter, emergency services. So this is just sort of a rundown of the basics. And each of these are recordings that we've got the primary pages for fire and services section. So, and then at the bottom down here, this is on the bottom of every page. We've still got the Latin there, we haven't written anything yet. We've got a feedback form that people can send us feedback. Something I forgot, so under public safety, we deleted, because we were going to move, there's a notices page here, and we'll have to re-implement it, but there'll be a notices link, and what that'll do is if there's a notice, there'll be a banner across the top of every page of the website. So if there's something important that we want people to see right away, no matter what page they land on, then that'll be front and center. So that's more or less it in a nutshell. And yeah, I think we're still about a month away.
Is that a high school in the middle of that picture?
There was, yes, right there.
Thank you, Peter. So I'll take a motion and second to receive the report and then open up for discussion. Thanks. Discussion. Yeah, so you think about a month?
There's still, we still have to, we still got some work to do with bylaws and minutes and agendas, because we want to have, I forget exactly, but trying to get 3 years back anyways, in terms of minutes to start with. So we still got some work to do. Still got a bit of copy to write, but it's coming along.
So the taxonomy of those 4 things across the top: government, services, community, public safety, that was discussed at length between staff and the website designers, not the pictures and font designer, but
The categories,
Yeah.
the main headings, yeah, and that was also distributed to mayor and council, and you provided some initial feedback back in August on that.
So those are universally exclusive, same level of taxonomy. I'm asking if you're satisfied that they are. I think that's right, although I may call government, I don't know what the difference between government and services is until I delve down, but then I understand. But that's a level of detail lower. But I'd say very much on the right track. I'd say it's pity it's not ready to go now, because it's looking great. Is this the standard font?
Yeah.
Calibri. Chosen by Schwann. And the point of death to all who shall not read it. Okay. That's great. Well done, I think. Yeah?
Well, very well done.
I mean, what a difference. I mean, the functionality is the thing that I care about. Like being able to search minutes and being able to search
But I think
minutes.
we'll have that as well, so.
And being able to search bylaws. Just buy the. You don't happen to have. I noticed that the highway webcam is up on a pole.
Yes.
Mhm.
Is it working?
Yes.
It's published.
They have not published it.
It's not on their
Site.
page yet,
Correct.
but
But
it's.
it is working. I've taken a look at some of the pictures.
So you could also put that on the thing somewhere.
Yeah. Once they have it published.
Yeah, it's just going to be a link. Okay, so seconded motion on the table to receive the report. All in favour? Opposed? That carries. That's great. Those are your secret notes. And we will now move on to reports from the mayor. The only thing the mayor has to report is, you will recall that we sent a request to Metro to conduct a feasibility study of water pipelines, so that Lions Bay is one of our long-term water supply strategies. They rejected that. I think I reported to council in a board meeting of the Greater Vancouver Water District, which Lions Bay is not a member of. However, I've just now today received a letter from them which essentially says the same thing, but I'll just mention to you. The final paragraph is this: while the GVWD is not prepared to fund and undertake a cost and feasibility study, Metro Vancouver staff are available to assist you in your assessment and can provide the village with technical advice regarding the study terms of reference, the possible connection options, and other pertinent background information on the GVWD water supply system. Should this assistance be of interest to you, that's when I yelled out an expletive, please contact, etc., etc. So, as you will recall, the Infrastructure Committee didn't take this lying down and suggested that we need to revisit this. I think this is potentially a window for either the IC and or staff, probably more driven by staff, to put together a fairly comprehensive request for information, which will essentially be our feasibility study. I'm not proposing to go to any sort of length. I'm just going to leave this with you, Peter, so you guys can decide what you want to do. But I think it's not all as bad as we potentially thought. They're perfectly willing to assist. For some reason, I don't know why, because I know they did Belcarra's feasibility study and ended up building a line for Belcarra, the same for Anmore, which came through Port Moody and all that stuff. So I don't know why they feel that they probably just rejected it out of hand because they thought it'd be impossible. But it's not. On the other hand, it may not be our chosen method of supply because, for example, it makes us beholden to Metro if we ever wanted to consider a different regional district parent, given, if we had a different supply option. As council knows, we're looking at opportunities for desalination. We're looking at opportunities for wells. Pipeline is only one of several strategic options. I would like to know what we're looking at so that we can make, not probably these individuals, but this body can make an informed decision when the time comes. So I'll leave that with you for now. And that's all I had.
It's actually a pretty major deal in terms of it's a viable water source that the infrastructure committee has touched and not, Metro has touched and not. It's something we'd like to know more about, unless staff tells me otherwise. They're pretty much pushed to the limit right now, tax time, all the stuff that they've got going.
Yeah, now's hardly the time that we're going to be putting this letter
like
together.
Maybe IRR for September, October-ish?
I would be happy if it took place within this council's term. If we got a response from
Yeah.
Metro, so we're talking.
I think just having a marker page is really what I'm looking
Yeah.
for here.
Well, let's make that an IRR, hey Peter?
I think it already is, isn't it?
No, because this would be now.
Because we have talked about this.
You took it away to Metro. You got your motion here to go to Metro. Metro blew it up.
Which we then did, and so this is new development in that the letter only
So I
arrived
think
today.
with the letter there, because we're not going to put any resources to it until we get to budget again, September, October.
Yeah, it's more to my mind good news that they haven't rejected it out of hand. They just said they didn't want to do it. Well, they're going to provide all the information we need anyway, and they would, independent of whether we're doing it internally or with an external consultant. So,
There needs to be a political will to do it, and we need to create that political will. That's
by on that, the chair of Metro, Greg Moore, who's the mayor of Poco, is coming on, Peter, 24th,
Sorry, I don't have it at my fingertips.
sometime soon.
March 30th.
March 30th? No, that's something else.
Isn't that the dog and pony show they're doing?
Yeah, there's a different dog and pony show.
Okay.
No, in fact, I believe it's in April sometime.
Well, this would be, hold the letter for that.
So, I'm just putting you on notice that we are going to give him a tour to show him why he should have at least asked us why we wanted to consider a water pipeline. So we'll take him up there, we'll show him some plants, we'll show him that we're not letting the grass grow under feet. We'll talk about it in a minute. So, we're looking at storage options. So they presented us several options for Greg. It's this, it's just sort of showing the thing. But let me just, so there were several options presented for Peter and me to go to Metro, and we held out for the one where he came here, and we said, plan on 3 hours, we'll supply lunch, and then we're going to go just show you around, show him reality of a small community.
I'd be happy to do the humping on the truck with them while you guys do something else, and then meet them back here and do that.
Well, anybody's welcome to come. He needs to understand who's driving the place, and so this is all part and parcel of saying, hang on a sec, not so fast, guys. You need to understand. We're not just being frivolous here. Okay.
Well, the financial opportunity is overwhelming if it ever came to pass, and it'd solve our problems forever.
Yes, there'd be all kinds of good reasons to have a pipeline, although I will just point out strategically, if we're running short of water, so are they. Sort of, because don't forget they're reservoir fed. Their supply is measured in terms of years, not hours.
They have less major obstacles than we do.
Yeah, I mean, the whole reason that they conserve water is to defer capital investment, not because they're about to run out.
Okay.
Okay, so I think that's fine as far as it goes. That's it for me. Council, Ron, I know you got several.
Just a quick, I think the seniors directory is coming along. If you haven't filled out the form, do so, send it to them in one shape or another. The pulling together canoe thing, we've talked about that already. TransLink, I sent in for Carl. The synthesis is, and I see that Mayor Coty was in the paper today. And I guess that was a soft way of how do we push TransLink's agenda, not knowing who the next political party is, theoretically. Leave that as it is. And I also attended a climate action meeting as well, and informative but no ask, and
This was the clean air,
clean air.
Clean-
how-
House on Clean Air,
House on Clean Air.
something. like that.
Small crowd. Pam and Jordan Sturdy's assistant both turned up for a coffee and left. And a small crowd by and large. Okay.
Okay, thanks. Council, any questions on that one? Okay, let's move on to committees.
Not this time.
No, we've had no committee meetings since the last committee report, so we'll move on to emergency services and the Lions Bay Fire Rescue report on page 13. You saw that I asked for some enhancements to this report, with no particular time expectation there, but I think there's things that, given this is a $400,000 department, we need to be starting to at least get a slightly better overview. So here we see what we see. Anything to go down here, as far as you know? So can we take a motion to receive all reports and a second? Any further discussion for item 8, reports? Seeing none, call the question. All in favour of receipt? Opposed? That carries. And we'll now move on to, Peter, is this how we're doing it? We're going to close the meeting?
So we need to close the meeting at this point. Yeah.
Under 91.1.
Under 91.1, and then whether or not you wish to consider the items that were to be considered at the end of the meeting at this point in time is something, so you may want to move it under all, and then whether or not you consider those items at this point or save them until later, you could decide in the
Okay.
meeting.
Well, we'll be guided by you in the closed session, but is this 91.1 the full and adequate grounds to close the meeting?
91I is what it is.
Oh, aye, sorry.
So receipt of advice that's subject to solicitor-client privilege, and I would suggest that it also be closed under E and under 2B. So then you can decide whether or not you wish to discuss those items now or save them till
Or not,
later.
in which case we just come straight out without having discussed them. Okay, so we'll need an additional motion for additional reasons for close. So I'll move that we close. Can you just give us a sense of how long this will take?
Well, so under 2B, I'll just tell you now, we'll be suggesting that we pull it out of close and bring it to open.
Okay.
So the other matters, it depends on the length of what's council's appetite to get into the meat and potatoes of what's going to come up. There's a couple of things that, so I would think it's going to be at least 20 minutes, and that's probably optimistic. It depends.
I thought most of the bylaw stuff looked pretty clean.
Okay, so that's, yeah, I mean, it like I say, it's
Maybe
up to
I think-
council as to where it goes, where the discussion goes, so,
Yeah, I'm just conscious of the gallery.
Yeah.
I don't want them to have to leave and wait and come back. And,
right, so with that in mind, council might want to look at keeping it as brief as possible, and if it turns out that there's an appetite to have further discussion about some of the items, then perhaps those could be delayed until the end of the meeting.
The second
And so
closed
that-
session.
Yeah, the second closed session, and then come back into open so that the public is not kept waiting longer.
Okay, so
than
with that
necessary.
in mind, can I have a motion to close under 91I and 91E and under 92B? Thanks, Fred. I saw your hand. A second. Any further discussion? All in favour? Opposed? That carries. So, audience, we're going to ask you to just vacate quickly. Can we let them into the hall, maybe?
I got
Or
a key. I'll let him in the hall.
yeah, if you'd like. This shouldn't take long, and we'd like to have you back. So, because the good part's coming. No, we have to adjourn the meeting first, right?
No, you
Adjourn the-
passed a motion to close the meeting.
Okay, so we're
meeting-
closed. Okay, it's 8:25 and we're resuming the open session of the meeting. One item to report out from the meeting, and that is that pursuant to instructions provided to the CAO by council, the village has reached agreement to acquire the parcel of land at 63 Brunswick Beach Road for consideration of $750,000 with the usual conditions and subjects precedent to the sale, which will be handled by staff. The reason for this acquisition is because of the extraordinary circumstances that the land became available for purchase and is seen by council as central to its long-term strategy for water supply. So with that, we will then move on to the next item on the agenda, which I have now misplaced, and it's here. And that is bylaws. The first being the Trees, Views and Landscapes Bylaw number 393 of 2007, Amendment Bylaw number 518, 2017, first, second and third readings on page 15. Peter, is this something you want to report? We've all read the report, I suspect. It's fairly cut and dried. These are mostly cosmetic and administrative fixes, correct?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a cleanup of a few things within the bylaw, as well as rejigging the forms that are used for the application process, so that they're much clearer for the applicants, as well as easier for staff to use, outlining all the steps in the process.
Fine. The one question I had, what is this on page 19? What is bylaw number 491?
Probably a mistake.
Oh, okay, fine. So
Just a sec.
Page 19 of the package. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
So
a mistake. Okay, fine.
That should say 518.
Okay. And then it seemed to me there were two sets of forms. Is that because I read the thing wrong, or?
So what we've got is as a new Schedule A is the tree cutting application form,
Page?
page 20,
20?
Yes.
and that runs through 21 and 22 as well.
Yeah.
And then Schedule B is the permit
Yeah.
for tree cutting.
Yeah.
And then so then what we've got is just the consolidated version of the bylaw, or draft consolidation, followed by...
That's with the new amendment
Yeah.
bylaw, and you say
Yeah.
in red which those are. Yeah.
Yep. And then followed by, we've got a few revisions to the tree cutting permit application checklist. So this used to be part of the Schedule A, but this doesn't need to be part of the Schedule A, so there's no way we can change it as we need to. So there's a checklist,
Yeah,
there's
okay,
a draft letter for people to
Different
use,
forms.
and then Public Works form for their referral comments, which we didn't
Fine,
previously
thanks.
have.
So I'll take a motion for a first, second, and third reading, and a second. Any further discussion?
I consider these are largely clerical.
Yeah, it's clarification, which I'm all for. Okay, so I will call the question. All in favour? Opposed? That carries. Thanks, Peter. Good one. Next, Board of Variance Bylaw number 502 of 2016, Amendment Bylaw number 519 of 2017, first, second, and third reading. Similar reasons, Peter, lay it on us.
Yeah, so this was a clerical mistake that I made with respect to fees bylaw number 497. So when we implemented that, we cited the wrong section of the Board of Variance bylaw with respect to the fee payable. So that's simply a correction of that.
Can I take a motion? And a second. Thanks. Any further discussion? I'll call the question on adoption, first, second, and third reading of the Board of Variance bylaw number 502. I looked up in fear.
Yes.
Amendment bylaw number 519 of 2017. All in favour? Opposed? That carries. And now, the road closure bylaw number 517 of 2017, first, second, and third reading. This is a four-part resolution. Staff has seen the report. I'll take a motion in second.
Sorry, just before you do.
Yeah.
So the reason that the name of the road is spelt with an H is because that's how it's spelt in the old subdivision plan from 1909. However, apparently it has changed in the land title office and is spelt without the H. So what I'd like to do is amend the wording slightly so that, for example, in the second recommendation or the second motion, that the notice of intention to close portion of Crystal Falls Road, also known as Crystal Falls Road without the H.
Yeah.
So add it there, as well as within,
In the bylaw itself.
in the bylaw itself, it appears in the preamble, second paragraph.
Yeah.
So it will also say AKA Crystal Falls Road, and in paragraph 2 of the bylaw,
Yeah.
same thing after Crystal Falls Road with an H, AKA without the H.
Is that how you spelled crystal in 1909?
I guess somebody did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's always been sort of interest to me why it's like that, and it does appear like that on quite a few maps. But so I think we will handle that quite well by saying AKA.
Yeah.
So there's absolutely no
Yeah.
equivocation.
So then in the actual notice itself that you're also approving, same thing, AKA where it appears. And
Now the map, will you have to
So-
change the maps
no,
themselves?
because that's based upon the subdivision map itself, so that won't have to change, it's just the bylaw will make it clear.
Okay, so I'll take a motion and second for the bylaw first, second, and third reading as amended by CAO's most immediate comments. Thanks. So, any discussion? This is a big one.
No, I'm fine.
Yeah,
I'm good with that.
a very clear report. Well done again, of course. So I will call the question. All in favour and opposed? That carries. So you can take it from there, right? Notices, MODI approvals, all that stuff is now underway as a result
Yeah.
of that, or it does still have. You've given it's in the report. Don't worry, we know the answers. Or at least-
So you did all four, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
No, that's why I was asking. We didn't. We only did first, second. We gave approval for
Oh,
first, second, and third.
first, second, and third.
Okay, so then we're going to need, and that's why I remind myself that we have 4 sections here. So now I will ask for a motion that notice of intention to close the portion of Crystal Falls Road, measuring 569.3 square meters, and describes parcel A, road dedicated by Plan 3149 Crystal Falls Road on the road closure plan attached to Schedule A. As Schedule A, to Road Closure Bylaw number 517 of 2017 be published pursuant to section 43 of the Community Charter. Thanks, there's a motion.
Did you insert the AKA in
I've got it.
Yeah, we'll just take the as amended to apply to all resolutions as well, but I'll say it as well.
Okay.
So, just a clarification, that's Crystal Falls Road, AKA Crystal Falls Road in the 2 different spellings. So thanks, that's a seconded motion, that's a motion, can we have a second on that one? Thank you. Any discussion? All in favour? Opposed? That carries. Third, may I have a motion that persons who consider they are affected by the bylaw be provided with an opportunity to make representations to council at the regular council meeting on April 4th, 2017. Motion? Motion, thanks, and a second. Thanks. Discussion? My only question on this one, Peter, was, and staff be directed to send certain people a letter, or do we want to, I mean, how do people explicitly know this is happening? The affected people?
We'll follow the requirements of the community charter in this respect.
There are explicit requirements laid out there.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm asking is, do you need an explicit council directive to do that, or would you do it
No,
anyway?
we'll have to do it in accordance with the act in any event.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
administrative, so you would handle that just fine
Mhm.
without us telling you to do it?
Yeah.
Okay, fine, so no need for that amendment. So we have a second motion on the table, any further discussion? Jim, no?
No,
No,
nothing at all.
okay. All in favour? Opposed? That carries. And finally, may I have a motion that staff send road closure bylaw number 517 2017 as at third reading to the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure for approval pursuant to section 41(3) of the Community Charter. Thanks, and a second. Any discussion on this one? Okay, all in favour? Opposed? That carries. Okay, now we've taken care of the housekeeping, correct, Shauna? You good there? Okay, now we get to the biggie. And that is the Zoning and Development Bylaw number 520 of 2017, first reading on page 57. Peter, I think you probably should walk us through something here.
Yeah, so we are going to also phone Steve, so he can be on the phone as well. If anybody has any questions.
Well, let's first understand if anybody does.
Actually, just I thought this was a very good cleanup all around, and I had only the two questions that Peter's embedded into this, which was the item number 18 on page 58, and in the middle of page 59 about the community care facility. And so those are my two questions, which I don't think we need Peter for. And the third, because we've been passing a lot of legislation, do we have a community amenities contribution policy? I forget,
No, we don't yet.
even though it's embedded within the bylaw.
It will be coming for council's consideration.
But that's just a policy which we adopt in one
I
go.
know, but
So,
just trying to
but the timing is important, right?
keep my cards somewhere in the deck.
Yeah.
He can just listen.
Okay,
in and
sure.
So
Yeah.
those are my two.
Just 1 second. Hello, Steve. It's Peter here, and you're in the council meeting.
You're in the house. Hi, Steve. Welcome. So we're just, I believe we are looking for a motion to give first reading to the zoning bylaw, but before we go there, we'll just have a few staff reports and yours around it.
Yeah, so I'll just go through sort of a few highlights here because there are a couple of things that we do want to touch on actually, and in addition, can you take one and pass it around? There'll be a couple more additional items that a couple of amendments prior to first reading. So as Councillor McLaughlin alluded to in
Just give us a
yeah, you can pass the extras. So there's recommendation that council consider removing reference to the community care facilities in the zoning bylaw with the understanding that such facilities are mandated by provincial law and can be licensed in any zone in the municipality, regardless of the municipality's zoning bylaw. It trumps our zoning bylaw effectively, but it doesn't mean that we have to reference it in the bylaw. So that's something that we wanted to check with council as to whether or not that was something you wanted to have just come out of the bylaw, or do you want to leave it in?
Good. You want us to answer that question now?
Sure.
First?
Yes.
Delete.
Yeah, so how this came up was in my little trip down south. My friends opposite their house, the guy bought the house, started doing some bathroom renovations. Long story short, it's in this case a hospice, 6 beds, very similar regulations to ours in California, trumps the zoning bylaw. That's all very well. The problem is the caregivers, the nurses, stand outside smoking and talking. Visitors come at all hours. Ambulances. You have compromised patients wandering the neighborhood in their nightgowns. It's not a good situation in an RS1 zone. there are more serious halfway house type of things, not released from prison, but drug rehab and alcohol recovery centers. Similar thing. 6 beds considered single family dwelling. Clearly, that would not be very well received by the neighbors of any such facility. Subsequent to my talking to Peter about this from California, I looked at the notes that the city had provided to the residents. It was a big public information session. There seems to be some consideration there, at least under the US legislation, that if the prohibition is universal, that may be satisfactory in any residential zone. But I'm not too worried about this because this is only first reading. So we have 2 more opportunities to tweak, depending on what the community wants. Because for all I know, the community would welcome these. But somehow extrapolating, I don't think so.
I think this looks like a lot of mud in my backyard.
In this case, you're right.
Yeah.
Which is effectively why the
The
province
province
brought the
has to be,
legislation
I'm
in.
familiar on the boards that I sit on where there are secret locations and,
Yeah. Yeah. So I would advocate just to remove that whole thing, not just to not provide a toehold.
Yeah, we don't need to
Specifically
say
say it.
it.
Yeah.
encourage somebody to do the research.
Okay, so do you want a resolution on that, on individual things, or do you want to just do a blanket resolution as discussed?
Perhaps the latter would be
Fine.
more efficient.
Okay.
Uh,
So now, just before we get too far ahead, because that's past the one that Ron brought up, section point 18, which was this no more than 1 secondary suite or 1 cottage. Is it or and?
So that was a point of clarification that we wanted to check with council, was whether or not you intend for the opportunity, if someone builds a 1,200 square foot detached cottage, can they also have a secondary suite? Or do you want to limit the number of dwelling units on the parcel to 2 rather than 2 plus a secondary suite? So,
That's pretty succinct.
Yeah.
What do we think?
I'm all for it. I think 2 is enough on 1 parcel.
So you're gonna restrict, Jim?
Yes.
Well, let's just go around to get a quick straw poll first. What do you say, Fred?
Well, to me, RS1 would be a single-family home, and with the concession of another one. If they want to have multiple dwellings on it, they should go for a different zoning, which I think would be something like a strata or something. Keep it simple.
Ron?
I'm trying to think, this couldn't apply to more than a handful of lots at best.
Well, I mean, the lot size is not that large. The lot size to allow a cottage is not that big. Remind us.
1,000 square meters.
1,000 square
so
meters, yeah.
Roughly 10,000 square feet.
How much is that in acres, Steve?
Quarter
How much?
acre.
Okay, so that is most lots in Lions Bay are eligible. Of course, these are done on a case-by-case basis to check for topography and all that stuff. My concern is that if somebody has a house now with a secondary suite and wants to build a cottage for aging in place reasons or getting the kids to move in, must they now take out their secondary suite?
Or rezone the property.
They would
Or
have,
rezone the property.
But how would you what would you rezone it to? We don't have a
Okay,
zone.
Peter, what would you
Okay.
rezone it to? How would this situation, how could this happen?
so if somebody had a secondary suite and their lot size was large enough that they could build a detached cottage up to 1,200 square feet, then they would not be eligible to do so because the provision of the bylaw would say, sorry, you can only have a house and a cottage, not a house, a cottage, and a secondary suite. So they would not be able to build a secondary suite, or sorry, a detached cottage.
Unless they decommissioned their secondary suite?
If
Give
they
us-
decommission the secondary suite, then they would be eligible and they could build a cottage. Those would be their only options unless, Steve, is there any other option that you can think of?
Just rezoning.
To a zone that we don't have today.
Yeah, so you would just create a zone or a category within the zone to say that on a certain particular lot, a guest suite or a cottage is permitted in addition to the house and the secondary suite.
So that just gives us an additional level of control over these things, I suppose. How does this jive with the requirement that we're still mooting to do with covenanting not to sell the cottage straight away? Is that an unrelated issue, or is it somewhat related?
That might be related because that one I'm not really sure of. It's a good question because there's a rule that you can't strata a suite from the main building, from the main dwelling, but if it's all one strata lot, it may not be an issue. So
Yeah.
you had a strata for a cottage and a strata for the house, and the house also included a suite, that would still all be one unit. So it may not be a problem.
Yeah, my thinking is that, I don't know if we have to decide this tonight, because this is now going to a public information session. I would say that these options need to be very clearly presented to the public so that they can give us a sense of what they think. My sense is that Lions Bayers would like to see both secondary suites and a cottage to have that flexibility. I like the idea that we can do a sort of a third kind of zoning, a residential zoning on that one, to have a level of control. And as I said last meeting, I'm not convinced about this covenant not to sell thing. That may preclude people from funding their downsize dwelling. But these are things that the community can talk about.
I think that we've already got enough problems in the village with parking that, I look at something like that, adding another
three
strata
cars,
unit or whatever the case is, and now you've got a requirement for an extra parking spot. You've got a requirement for 2 parking spots for the house and an extra one for the extra residence. So now all of a sudden we're causing problems in the area.
Plus one for the suite.
Plus one for the suite, yeah.
Steve, just remind us, what is going to be the requirement for parking for the cottage?
2 parking
2 more,
spaces
so it's 3 more cars.
Three
Yeah.
more, so it's 3 more. So,
need
yeah.
altogether.
Which is why you want to have this as a zoning, to say that we need to check that you've got the 3 spaces.
Yeah.
So the other thing is with respect to the ability to sell any portion, the way the bylaw is written right now in section 7.3,
Yeah.
which refers to density benefits for amenities, it provides that where you have the minimum lot size, you can accommodate a cottage. Where a covenant and amenities identified in the community amenity contribution policy are provided. So the covenant is a covenant that is intended to restrict you from selling off the cottage. That was where we discussed that in the Community Strategy Committee meeting, and that was where that one landed. So that's how that reads at this point in time.
What about selling off the main dwelling?
You can always sell your house, but it's going to come with a cottage as well.
Cottage.
Yeah.
Again, I think I know what the village would like to see there, but I want to hear that from them first. Where do we talk about the density bonus?
In section 7.3.
So we don't give a percentage?
No, what we have is, you've got base densities which are set out in section 7.2, and then in section 7.3.1, where you can apply to increase your maximum density. Can be increased to 1 parcel per 800 square meters and 700 square meter minimum parcel area to facilitate subdivision. So if you want to split your parcel, right, and sell the second half or build on it, that's for a second single detached dwelling. You can do that where amenities as identified in the community amenity policy are provided. So that will be
That's
as
going to
yet
be where
to
we
come,
will see it, yeah.
And I'm working on that.
Yeah, I love it. But I mean, that's what I asked for. That we don't just blindly say the parcel size is 8,000 square meters. Good luck to you. You send us a request. We actually say we will entertain a request.
So, I mean, it has yet to be fleshed out, but there will be a graded scale more or less in terms of the type of application that's being made as to the amount of community amenities that would be expected under the policy. So if you're just doing a straight subdivision, cutting your lot in half, that's going to be at the higher end of the spectrum. And if you're simply adding a cottage, then you're going to sign a covenant saying you can't sell the cottage separately, and you're going to provide an amenity in the policy, as identified in the policy, and maybe that would be at the low end of the spectrum because you're adding presumably affordable housing to the mix in the community, and maybe that's the amenity. So you could say, that's it, they're done. Or you could say, it's a minimal amount, whatever that may be, or anyways, that's still to be fleshed out, and we'll come back to council soon.
But we have the framework to do
Yes.
anything and all things there.
Yeah.
Okay, what else do we have?
Just go back. So without running through each of the items that were highlighted in Steve's report as to what has been changed, were there any other issues that council wanted to ask about with respect to that before I move on to the next things?
Well, the only thing I had was the map itself, which I believe is certainly, I think it's the first time I've seen the map. This adds a new W2 zone, or W1, I can't remember which is the new one. The Brunswick Beach Overlay Area, that's specifically referred to as a thing in the bylaw, right?
Mhm,
That's
yeah.
defined. So those 6 lots, the famous 6 lots at the end of Crystal Falls Road, or Glendale Avenue actually, those are no longer lots. So this is an old map.
Yes.
Should we update this map to reflect?
In due course, yes, but we don't have a GIS department, so this is what we're starting with.
So this can go out there like this now.
This is sufficient for the purposes of first reading and going to a public information session on it.
Should there not at least be a key? Or I guess they're labeled, so they don't have to be a key, right?
They're labeled, yeah, so you would just go to the bylaw to see what that zone permits.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I had. What have we done about the watershed zones? The watershed, that's a land use, not a zone, right?
Steve, do you want to speak to that with respect to the deletion of the watershed zones?
Well, the community watersheds, it turns out, were very minimal in terms of how much they actually applied to Lions Bay. And the one that did apply actually, and Peter, you can probably speak to it a little better than me, but it overlaid quite a few private properties. And
Wonderful.
So,
Yeah.
so for the most part, the watershed areas were outside the boundaries of the municipality,
Anyway,
so were
okay.
irrelevant to the zoning bylaw.
Okay.
But there was one that came way down Rundle Creek, all the way down to the foreshore, and so it was not, it was of a sufficient width that it was overcovering other private residence property and different uses, which would be in conflict with the zoning for those uses. So
In terms of zoning, so the land uses that I've seen that show watershed all the way down to the parcel boundaries, that would be land uses, not zonings. Correct, Steve?
well, what we've got with the zoning now is everything more or less above the developed area is zoned as resource use.
Yeah.
And we just added environmental conservation, although it's permitted in all zones. I thought that it would be appropriate to conservation, just sort of a purposeful redundancy, because the official community plan speaks quite a bit to environmental conservation on slopes. So I thought that would be a reasonable thing to add to the resource zoning. We did away with natural areas conservation zone, which was going to apply primarily to the watersheds, because I think, Peter, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the Rundle Creek is not used, is it, as a water source anymore, or is it?
no.
It is not, no. And Not as a
That
potable
would-
water source, not as an official water source, let's put it that way.
Yeah, so that community watershed designation is pretty much obsolete, and I would think that applies to Russell Creek and overlaps a number of private properties.
Okay, so with the proviso that this is only first reading, and that I'm just going to take it for granted that the public information, as amended.
Well, yeah, we've got to run through these.
Oh, I see. Okay, okay, hold that thought. Talk to us about this one, Peter.
Okay, so I've handed around a sheet of proposed amendments to the zoning bylaw prior to first reading. So in addition to the deletion of the community care facilities references, we're recommending that the following definitions be added. Emergency mooring means mooring for safe harbor from inclement weather or marine conditions, repairs to a vessel or sea medical purposes. And houseboat means a special type of vessel that has been designed or modified for recreational residential use. Secondly, that section 12.1.1a, so if we go to that, which is on page 90 of your package. So this is the W1 water zone, which basically is all of the water in front of Lions Bay out to the boundary 1,000 feet out, with the exception of the W2 zones. So what we're proposing there is to add the words, essentially add the words, or private mooring to, sorry, hang on. Public or private mooring to a mooring system for vessels 12 meters or less in length. So we're adding the words mooring to a. Previously just said public or private mooring system. So that's just sort of a technical amendment. The next one is that subsection E be added to section 12.1.1 as follows. E, emergency mooring, which we've added to the definitions. And I'll read out what it actually, oh yeah, I already did. Section 12.1.1a is proposed to be amended to read, subject to a need for emergency mooring, no person shall harbor or shall anchor, moor, or permit the mooring of a vessel that's more than 12 meters in length or a houseboat for periods greater than 72 hours every 30 days. And finally, that subsection D be added to section 13.1.1, which is essentially adding a provision for emergency mooring, and that is the W2 zone. So the W2 zone basically, so in a W1 zone, you can moor a vessel that's under 12 meters in length, and if it's over 12 meters in length, you can have emergency mooring use. But the conditions of use in section 12.2 indicate that unless it's for emergency use and you're over 12 meters, you can only be there for, or your houseboat, for no more than 72 hours every 30 days. In the W2 zone, in section 13, the permitted uses are only public beach, public float, public boat launch ramp, or emergency mooring, which we've just added.
Only in W2.
Yeah, so the W2 is a water zone that is in front of Kelvin Grove Beach Park and in front of Lions Bay Beach Park, basically just encompassing the swimming area out to the log boom and the raft, and in front of Brunswick Beach, where we already have a foreshore water lease park attached to the foreshore park.
Why not in front of Brunswick Beach, the rest of it, in Alberta Bay?
We felt like that was too big and too much, as well as that, as we understand it, The winds come in pretty hard there. It's not a safe place to stick a boat anyways. But we stand to be corrected on that.
I'm sorry, but I don't know of any place along our shoreline that is a safe mooring during a storm. Every single one, we all know, those of us who have boats know that this area is not a good area to have a boat moored when there's a storm coming in. Doesn't matter where it is. Those of us that have our boats anchored.
But that's the W1 consideration, and frankly, if it's a Squamish, a northerly, Alberta Bay is a great place to pull in because it's sheltered, but only in a northerly. We're talking about a W2, which is specifically stuff to do with public use of the beach. And we're specifically talking about floats, really.
No, we're talking about buoys and mooring, and you can
Not
only moor in a W2
The
in
definition-
front of,
For
in
those
front of the
reasons.
park.
Yeah.
Well,
If
so
it's
there's
an
a
emergency.
lot of moorings in Alberta Bay, as we know. There must be at least, I don't know, 15, 16 buoys there.
Okay.
So if we
So-
change that to a W2, there'd be an outcry from all the people who have their buoys there. The only reason I'm kind of interested in it is to do something about the nude beach, which is on the northern side of Alberta Bay, potentially. But okay, well, these are all things that I think need to be brought. These are topics for discussion at the public information meeting, and it's a show of hands. Is in no way, it's not even indicative really, because it's the same sort of normal people who come. We don't normally do this, but would anybody in the gallery care to comment?
I would like to comment.
Sure, go ahead, Ian.
Sorry, just before you do, Ian, can you make a motion to have council agree with that?
Okay, fine. Okay.
Suggestion?
Can I have a motion that a member of the public can address council? In a second. All in favour? Opposed? Carried. Now you're official.
I'm just wondering what the purpose of W1 and W2 are. In respect to W1 and mooring, pretty well all the space that's available for moorage has already been appropriated. There isn't any additional space. The waterfront owners or others have already placed buoys out there, and under the relevant federal legislation, you can't have a buoy that will interfere with one that was put in prior to yours. So that's all taken care of in the W1 zone. I'm just wondering what the real purpose of the W2 zone is. If the W2 zone in respect to the Lions Bay Beach Park extends to the log booms, nobody's going to be anchoring within the log boom. It's impossible. In fact, at low tide, the logs are on the bed there. There's no possibility of anchoring there. So I'm just concerned that the village is getting involved in defining emergency and proper uses for anchorage that could be the subject of interpretation, and something that the village really doesn't want to get involved in at all, for no real benefit. It seems to me the problem here is the houseboat. And it seems to me that the houseboat has located itself in the area off of the Calvin Grove Beach Park. Right now, there are only 2 mooring buoys in that area, both used by sailboats. It seems to me that the village has an interest in preserving the outfalls for the sewer treatment plant. And there's a risk that either by anchoring or dropping a block to moor, you can damage that. So it seems to me that perhaps the village would like to consider resolving this problem of the houseboat and other potential misuses by placing appropriate buoys in that bay to prevent others from dropping blocks or anchoring there. There should be some warning to prevent people from anchoring in that location. It seems to me, as a litigator, that you're looking at all kinds of potential problems with respect to this proposed bylaw. There's so much that can be interpreted, and if you have people who want to fight about an interpretation, there are a multiplicity of them here, and that will involve the village in litigation. So those are my thoughts on the subject.
Okay,
So,
Thank you.
thanks,
So-
Ian.
would you like me to address any of those comments?
Well, I mean, if you can address some of them now, yeah, sure,
Great,
go ahead,
okay.
yeah.
So, with respect to W2 zone in front of Kelvin Grove Beach, as directed by council, we will be applying for a license of occupation over those waters. And that will work in conjunction with the W2 zone. We've also been in contact with NAV Canada, and we can exclude mooring buoys from a W2 zone. We cannot exclude emergency mooring. It's a core of federal jurisdiction. In the event of the need as defined, as we've set it out. Those uses we cannot trench on. But we can say, no, you cannot park a boat here and leave it here, period. And we will do that in two means. One, through the zoning, and the other through the license of occupation. In terms of doing the same thing, we also intend to apply for license of occupation for the waters in front of Lions Bay Beach Park for the same reasons. And in terms of in front of Brunswick, which we now own or will, subject to sale completing, that piece of land, which council has indicated will stay in its natural state for the time being. And so there may be, there's interest in, certainly community interest in protecting that area. So that's why those three areas have been chosen for a W2 zone, which we have the authority to regulate according to the legal advice that we've received.
It seems to me that you're gonna pay a price for that license of occupation. It won't be cheap, and there are other ways for the village to spend its money, and to resolve the problem of the houseboat, it can be done much more cheaply than that.
Well,
And there's nothing certain in litigation. Any litigator will tell you that there are two sides to any litigation, and that's how lawyers make their income. There's nothing certain arising out of the Kelowna decision that will certainly and necessarily apply to Lions Bay.
Yeah, I
I've been a
think,
litigator for 33 years, and I think I know what I'm talking about.
I'm not taking what you say lightly, sir.
no, I don't think any of us are. So, I mean, obviously you've touched on the salient point here. We obviously have to go with the advice that we're receiving. That's not to say that this is a done deal. My question around a similar thing with these amendments is that we define a houseboat as a vessel, which means that it's already encompassed in the provisions for a vessel, because we speak about a vessel. I don't want to say a houseboat is a vessel. So a special
It's
kind
not-
of...
It's not really up to us as to whether or not it's a vessel. If it has a motor, it's probably a vessel.
Okay, vessel is undefined. Yes, that's true, and there are houseboats with motors and houseboats without motors, whichever one I didn't say twice. And if a vessel is defined by a floating platform with a means of propulsion, then okay, fair enough. But we don't define the word vessel. I'm concerned that, exactly as Ian's saying, we're providing a means of interpretation here, saying, well, you said a houseboat is a kind of vessel. Vessels are allowed to do the following things. Or is that getting too...
We've defined
Nitpicky.
we've defined what boats over a certain size and houseboats may or may not do.
Okay, so if you don't sleep on it overnight, is that no longer residential?
It's-
Because you can say all boats are for recreational purposes. I'm looking at the definition on this piece of paper under number one.
Okay, yeah.
So,
So
I'm concerned that
just
this...
because you don't use it for residential purposes doesn't mean it's not a houseboat.
Yeah, but we say what a houseboat is. So,
It's designed for that purpose.
okay, well, I'm not going to argue the toss now, obviously, but now's not the time.
So we can certainly look at the pros and cons of defining the word vessel, and come back with something at a later date with respect to that.
We have an administrative option here, which is to even preceding applying for a license of occupation, we can put buoys down in the correct radius. Certainly, and I would even think floating buoy with a text on it saying, sewer outfall, throw no anchors on pain of...
Just put the words priv, P-R-I-V, the village's name, your phone number, make sure that it's orange on top. I'm happy to donate one of my boys if you want to do it quickly. I'm not joking, to preserve that area.
So I'm not sure how that preserves anything, because NAVCAN says that you can basically, for a vessel under 12 meters, you can just apply, it's called a minor works application, and they don't even process them, it's just automatic practically.
But it's first come, first served, so
They
if we get
hardly
there
even
first.
track
No,
them,
they
so we're
don't-
gonna have
they
a
don't
whole
track
bunch of buoys in that harbor.
No,
And
they
what good
can't
is it that half of them are
interfere.
ours?
They can't interfere with each other.
So-
They have to be within, if a buoy is
Separate.
put down in accordance with the legislation, it has a circumference that it moves around depending on the tide, and you can't place another buoy in there that will interfere with the first buoy.
Right, so
It's
if there's,
very clear, so if it's put in place and it meets the regulations, it seems to me that that's a relatively, at least an initial, inexpensive way of dealing with the problem, particularly so with the sewer outfall risk that you have for Lions Bay, and even the fact of anchoring and pulling up your anchor could potentially damage the outfall.
Well, I don't think it's going to cost us anything to at least to do that, independent of any zoning bylaw consideration. I think, but let's not put you on the spot. Yeah. So, Steve, I thought you were trying to say something.
Oh, no, I was just sort of confirming whoever was saying that there are, they call it swing distance or something, but there's separation distances between mooring buoys that are in the regulations, so you could figure out how many you would need if you were going to take a tactic of installing a number of buoys. Not sure I'm not that familiar with the regs. I've read them over a couple of times, but not sure if one organization or entity can have more than one. There's a number of questions, but it's something that could be pursued over the curve, and it is quite independent of the zoning
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah, so I think we'll do that under a separate directive to staff. But in terms of the zoning, we are considering whether to do a first reading of the zoning bylaw with this amendment. We've heard what expert witness has to say.
so just to clarify, the amendments are to provide greater clarity and legal force to the bylaw as it presently stands.
Yeah, no, I think we all get that. So I would suggest that we're okay to do the first reading as amended, with the proviso that staff must be very sure that all these issues must be called out for the public information session, let alone for council in the second and third go-rounds. Fred, sorry.
Yeah, I just thought before we do a first reading, there's I've got a couple of questions here as well, not to do with the mooring. But C2 zone, item 10.1, you've got under D, marina land facilities including boat maintenance and repair, restaurant, office, outboard and inboard engine repairs within a building. That wasn't in the last draft, and
No.
I don't really see the benefit of saying within a building, because it's not possible at the marina to work on all the boats, engines, inboard or outboard within a building.
Yeah, I missed that. Yeah.
So I think House on Marine, for example, has their vehicles and they go around to the various places in there and do their repairs outside the building. So I wouldn't want to see something like that in there that's going to eliminate the opportunity of being legal in the bylaw for House on Marine, for example.
What was the driver there, Steve?
The reason was that the bylaw was a little vague as it was originally written. It just said marina land facilities, and it didn't define at all what that meant. So what I did was there's Sunset Marina just down the sound there, a couple of kilometers, I guess, in West Van. And I looked and I borrowed this. I just basically thought, well, being on a level playing field between the marinas is a reasonable thing, and I took West Vancouver's definition of what marina land facilities were, excluding boat building, which they allow. And I thought, well, boat building is not something that's going to happen at the marina in Lions Bay. but that's where it emanated from, was to provide some clarity about what is actually included within a marina. And then within a building, there's already in the bylaw some sort of funny provisions about some of the buildings aren't allowed to be more than 3 meters high.
Yeah, well, Fred's absolutely right.
That's in one particular area, though. So, you know, I didn't really have any sort of conscious decision about whether the repairs should be indoors or outdoors or within a building, other than to be consistent with the neighboring muni and sort of having a level playing field. It just seemed reasonable. So if you have a different direction on that, that's fine with me.
Yeah, there's no competing marinas in Lions Bay, unlike West Van, where there must be at least 3 that I can think of off the top of my head, 4 maybe. So when you ran this by the marina operator in Lions Bay, did you go through word by word?
No.
No.
Not this is probably a lot broader than what may have been intended. I'm not sure that everything is in the marina zone there was quite limiting. Apart from whoever wants to interpret what marina land facilities mean in relation that so much of it was kind of out of context, I guess, in the way the zoning was structured in the old bylaw. It was very, very precise and very strict about where buildings could be and how small and how precisely located. And then you've got kind of a wide open, undefined term of just land facilities. And so that comes to staff to interpret, what does that mean?
Yeah. No, I understand that we may need something more there.
Yes.
I mean, I'll just, what happened at the marina was that a maintenance provider induced the marina owner to construct a fairly large shed on the end of the breakwater, the jet, I guess breakwater is what we'd call it, which was deemed to be non-compliant with I don't know what, no building permit, I think. But I believe we would certainly not want that. Now that is not an accessory dwelling. That's a maintenance shed, and it was made of plywood and tar paper, and it sat there not very long, about a year, until it was demolished on the order of the building inspector, I believe. Is that how it worked?
I think so.
Yeah.
So I mean that's something we'd want to prevent, and I don't see that being prevented. I'm also wondering, am I allowed to pressure wash my boat in the C2 zone? Is that maintenance? I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to knock off everything here, although I'd be quite happy to take out and within a building there, because you flagged that one. This is first reading only, and these kinds of things must be pointed out, and we'll rely on people like Ian and others to flag these things. I mean, I see a not insignificant amount of tweaking still to come before second. And remind us of the procedure, Steve or Peter. It goes from first to second, then the information reading, the information after the first, then second, then it goes to the ministry.
It goes to the ministry after first reading. We doubt the ministry is only concerned about land use within 800 meters of a controlled access highway, so that's probably most of the village. But we're not really changing land use in any significant way at all.
But that's MODI, that's the Ministry of Transport. What about the Ministry of Community, Sport and Cultural Development?
I don't think they've got anything to do with it.
Oh, they don't care. Oh, okay, even better. Fine.
So then you go to second reading. Like we can send the bylaw off to MODI to get them to approve it. We carry out our public information. We assess and review the comments and the feedback we get at the public info meeting, and we bring forward a report with recommended alterations to the bylaw, and then you go for second reading with any necessary amendments. And once you've done second reading, then you're going to a public hearing. The public hearing is kind of the formal process where, the comments are recorded and, there's very strict rules about what changes can be made after the hearing is concluded.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, so yeah, then we're getting fairly close to final. Yeah, I mean, I do not. This is an opportunity to get this right, and as council knows, I've been questioning the validity of our whole secondary suite provisions, but Peter assures me that is changed in the secondary suite surcharge bylaw. In terms of what we charge for a secondary suite and how we charge it and what we charge for.
It's always been in the secondary suite.
So that's not a zoning bylaw issue. So the fact that secondary suites exist and are allowed to exist, that's independent of how we.
Well, no, secondary suites are permitted under this bylaw.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. How we choose to administer them is independent of the zoning bylaw.
Regulate them will be part of the building bylaw going forward. So the safety features and all that kind of stuff that were previously in the zoning bylaw will be in amendments to the building bylaw.
So I did ask that question. Between the time that we take them out of the past zoning bylaw and put them in the new building bylaw, what happens?
The intent had been to try and bring forward a new building bylaw along with the zoning, but if that's not going to be achievable, and it probably won't be achievable, then I'll do amendments to the current building bylaw to stick those provisions in there so that there's no gap.
No gap. Yeah, okay.
I hate to interrupt, and I appreciate that you've been very indulgent, but is there any interest on behalf of the council to invoke a bylaw that will essentially prohibit waterfront residences from taking out foreshore leases all along the waterfront and changing the character of Lions Bay?
I certainly don't think that's our intention, but how would this is so we're talking about license of occupation and W2 zoning in two very special places.
Well, we're talking about at least one individual, one resident of Lions Bay has a license of occupation adjacent to their waterfront property. Now, if that is a situation that is repeated along the whole of the waterfront, that will change the character of Lions Bay quite dramatically.
So you're saying we should prohibit that?
Absolutely, but I think, and it's been a long time since I've looked at this, I think that that could be achieved by prohibiting docks. That could be the case. I don't recall now, but I believe there's some discussion of it in the Bowen Island decision that I previously.
We have discussed that to a certain extent. I mean, the feeling is that I disagreed with was that nobody would build a dock because it get washed away in the first winter. But as you know, if you've got enough money, you can build a bulletproof dock. So
We haven't provided for docks in either the W1 or the W2 zone. So that's one of the main reasons for having zoning over the water is that the Ministry of the Lands, Crown Lands authorizations, the people in Ministry of Environment for Lands who issue the leases will, the standard form is that there be compliance with local zoning. So if you don't allow docks, then they won't issue, to my knowledge, they won't issue a license of occupation for a dock.
That's what happened in the Bowen Island case.
yeah, so are we excluding docks right now?
Yeah,
Yes, we are.
yeah, they're not permitted use.
So what are you
So
saying?
a person would have to apply to rezone for a zoning amendment in order to have a dock permitted in front of their residence or their property, and then the case would be evaluated on its own merits at that point.
If I understand things correctly, though, there is a difference between a floating dock and a dock that is attached to land and goes to a floating platform. I think that some of the residences, at least the Rogers residence, doesn't have a connection to the land. It only has a dock that's out in.
It's what we call a float in this bylaw as defined.
Yeah. And if I understand your advisor correctly, the ministry won't approve these applications unless there is a dock that joins to the land and goes out into the water.
Which we prohibit. But we do not prohibit a float. Steve, in W1?
Public or private float is permitted. And a float is, let's see, yeah, public or private floats shall be located within the boundaries of a water lease or license of occupation. No portion of a float shall exceed 3 meters in width or length.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, council has considered this, just to address your point, and I don't know that council does feel that that would change the character, because it's prohibited in the W2 zones, the zones that are sort of public beaches. And if somebody wants to put something along the front in Lions Bay or anywhere else in front of their property, I think we were okay with that. In fact, there's two I know of for sure towards the end of Lions Bay Avenue, pointing in the right direction, end of Lions Bay Avenue. They're just sitting there, and the kids swim out to them every now and again. But again,
I'm talking about docks, though, that are connected to the land. That's gonna change it.
but docks are prohibited.
We don't permit that. They'd have to apply for
So then
rezoning.
how can you get a lease if you don't have a dock, if that's a necessary condition
You
for a
can't.
lease?
They won't be able to get a lease.
Well, there's at least one,
Well,
and that's on the map.
Pre-existing.
I mean, there it sits. It's in green.
Pre-existing.
Yeah.
No,
Pre-existing to
that-
what?
That's a requirement of the lease in and of itself, without.
The provincial lease.
No, yes, it has to be a dock attached to land.
So, but that would be illegal non-conforming use once our bylaws are adopted.
But we don't regulate it. It's provincial
We
regulation.
wouldn't be able to, nobody else would be able to come along and do the same
It
thing.
seems to me you'd have to have a building permit in order to construct that dock to go out into the water to start with, so
Not to mention the encroachment into the setback.
into the foreshore. So
And-
something doesn't add up here.
Okay, that's a special case which
Yeah.
we're not going to touch on in the zoning bylaw. But yeah, I now see where you're going. You're saying that license of occupation, which has a float in it today,
Yeah.
should never have been allowed.
No, your
As I
zoning
understand it.
bylaw right now does allow for wharves and things like that.
Yeah, but it doesn't have a
So
wharf.
we're,
The current one.
Yeah, but so the point is the province should never have granted the license of occupation because there's no wharf. But so that's a different discussion, and that's something between the province and the property owner.
Well, presumably in your application, you have to show the design of the wharf that you intend to build.
Maybe it's coming. In which case, it will now be prohibited.
I apologize for interrupting.
No apologies necessary. Your input's valued. Okay, so here's what I suggest we do. With Fred's amendment to remove the inside a building thing, with these amendments for mooring and houseboat,
And with the
Unchanged?
deletion of community care facilities.
and with the community care facility thing, a definition removed and consideration of that definition somewhere in the text of the thing. Those are the only amendments. I would ask for a carefully thought through motion for first reading of the zoning bylaw. Who is prepared to do that? And are we there?
Yeah, this one here, this one.
Oh, wait, okay, don't go anywhere.
Peter, I forget where we resolved on the, maybe we didn't, we're just gonna leave it for the public to draw it, the secondary suite in one cottage thing.
I think we need to wait
No,
for the...
no, the way that the bylaw is worded right now is that you cannot have both.
Can I have both?
Right. So
Which I'm...
the
So
recommendation.
we'll just draw that to the public's attention and come back later.
Yeah, there will be an opportunity to change that if there's a vehement outcry or
Thank you.
it's a strong arguments in either direction. Yes?
Motion.
Thank you. But let me just hear that from Peter. We can still change that, for example, amongst other things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, fine. Because I want to hear what people want to say. I think I already know the answer. Thanks. So there's a motion, but Sean has just pointed out that the recommendations are written in such a way that I think we'll need to do 4 reses on this one as well. That the information report, including the things that I just stated in terms of amendments discussed verbally and received on table, revisions to draft zoning bylaw, and consideration of first reading dated March 15th, 2017 be received. So let's have a motion on that one. And a second. Any further discussion? So this is essentially receiving, only receiving.
Receiving the report.
Yeah. And all in favour? Opposed? That carries. And then second, can I have a motion that the recommendations in the March 15, 2017 report be endorsed, including deletion of reference to community care facilities, plus other items as discussed, in terms of deletions of small portions of the text of the bylaw, consideration of the amendments pertaining to houseboats, the definition, and emergency mooring.
Yes.
Thank you. That's a motion and a second. Thanks. Any further discussion on that one? I'll call the question. All in favour? Opposed? That carries. And thirdly, that the zoning and development bylaw number 520 2017 be read a first time. Oh, very fancy. I like that. Thanks. That's a motion and a second. This is it. First reading. All in favour? Opposed? That carries. And finally, that a public information meeting regarding the zoning and development bylaw number 520 of 2017 as at first reading. First reading or second reading?
It'll be going there as at first reading, so it will have had first reading and then they'll be continuing.
But I heard Steve to say that that only happens after second reading.
No, that's a public
Then
hearing.
it's an information meeting.
Oh, sorry, beg your pardon. Okay. To be held 7 p.m. April 6th at Broughton Hall. Can I have a motion on that one? Thanks. And a second. Any discussion? All in favour? Opposed? Carried. Okay. Moving on to the driveway crossings bylaw number 521 of 2017. This is.
I'll find out now.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Unless you want to listen to this one, it's good stuff. But thanks for your input, and we'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so the report is on table. Is there one of these in the gallery?
Yes.
There is. Okay, there is. So the report attached to the bylaw provides a recommendation for which I would ask a motion. That's grammar. Okay, we're all there? So, motion. Thanks, and a second. Okay, discussion. Peter, you've given us a sense of what this is about, but for the record, perhaps you can give us a succinct summary.
Succinctly, Lions Bay does not have a driveway crossing bylaw or an encroachment bylaw or a development servicing bylaw. And there is some guidance in terms of a 2004 policy on encroachments and a 2008 policy on encroachments. However, that's not sufficient legal basis for the municipality to properly administer its boulevards, i.e. the section between the traveled portion of the road and the adjoining property line. And to properly do so, we need a bylaw. There are some encroachment agreements existing throughout the village, various properties. Council passed one a couple of weeks ago. But it's impractical for the village to have an encroachment agreement for every single property. Hence, a driveway crossing bylaw deals with matters in a much more efficient way. There may still be the need for some encroachment agreements where conditions warrant, and that's laid out in the bylaw. So, as things presently stand, without a bylaw, the village is in a difficult position in terms of its ability to administer and to protect itself from liability, for that matter, with respect to its boulevards and the structures that people have built to access their properties, i.e. their driveways. A lot of these structures will erode over time and are in the process of eroding and need replacing. And so we need a bylaw to deal with these sorts of issues. That's succinctly what it's about.
I think that encapsulates the issues that we're facing. Any further input? Nine? You look like you have something that crossed your mind.
No, just a lot of other munis were a lot of other bylaws were reviewed, and this is a well-written encapsulation.
Good. Yeah, I mean, I would just say that I think the critical issue here is that as our developed properties mature, this will, as Peter specifically said, I'm just re-emphasizing it, this will become more and more necessary to administer necessary changes to private changes to the public realm. So with that, let's we have a second motion on the table, do we?
I think Fred's got something.
Oh, sorry, Fred.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. 1.7.4, the applicable permit fee for $100. Shouldn't that be in the fees bylaw instead of the?
Ultimately, it will be. It'll get moved there. I didn't have enough time to do an amendment to the fees bylaw. So yes, that will happen.
Okay. One thing I was wondering, under standards, 1.11.1, no more than one driveway crossing shall be provided to each residential parcel.
Mm-hmm.
If a piece of property is amenable to it, why would we not want to let them?
I'll let Nye speak to that.
So by adding more driveways, you're increasing the number of retaining walls and structures that are built on the public realm. The addition of driveways will also increase the impervious area. So water is allowed to fall onto grass and drain away and soak away into the grass. By paving that, we're adding more drainage to the roadway and thereby increasing erosion, wear, etc. on the roadway.
You're talking about new development. What about existing?
Existing driveway, existing dual driveways.
Mm.
Yeah, I believe they'd be grandfathered.
A non-conforming use?
Yeah, we wouldn't be going back and saying tear it out now.
If it was permitted to begin with.
Yeah.
If it wasn't, then that's a different question.
But my point to this, if you had a culvert under each section, would that not negate any issue for disallowing it? Because they'd have...
The culvert, a culvert passes the water that's in the ditch already, but
Yeah.
what you're doing is you're adding impervious area and you're adding more runoff to the actual roadway
I get you.
and
I get you. Yeah.
Depending, I mean, this will happen, I can think of several instances that exist today. It's on street-to-street lots. I guess we can always do... Yeah, okay.
I would add that numerous municipalities in the Lower Mainland have the same provision. This is not a unique provision.
No, I'm sure.
It's standard throughout the Lower Mainland.
Thanks, Fred. Does it?
One more?
Yeah, go.
And just the next line down, we've got driveway crossing shall have a maximum gradient of 2% within 2 meters of curb or edge of pavement. I presume that has something to do with snow removal.
It does have to do with snow removal. It also has to do with pedestrians walking on the boulevard. Any changes greater than 2% could pose tripping hazards.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
You know.
My concern on that particular one is that in many cases our roads today are not necessarily through the center line of the highway, the road allowance. And if we wanted to, at some point in the future, change that alignment of the tarred portion of the road, now we'd be going where the driveway is higher. Do we not want, the more draconian way of doing this is saying that your driveway must meet grade at the property line. Is that too difficult to achieve?
Yeah, similar to the requirements most municipalities have on the slope of a driveway. Given our terrain, that would put an undue burden upon the residential lots.
Just too difficult to build a driveway that complies.
Correct, with everything else that's factored in, front yard averaging, house location, buildable space. It does become quite challenging, and that's why you have the driveways that you do have here.
Yeah, I mean that was easy to do in the day because that was the quick and dirty way to do it. You drove your bulldozer from the road alignment up to where you want it to be. I'm thinking more in terms of future in-street drains, sidewalks. Who knows? But this is probably good enough for Lions Bay at its current state of maturity. I'm asking.
It's absolutely needed right now. Yeah.
Even today. Yeah, I was concerned about that one as well. I thought that still allows a slope on the public right away. But you're telling us it's too difficult not to do it.
Yeah, and 2% over the 2 meters is standard and is drawn from other municipalities.
So that gives you at least 2 meters from the edge of the tar to put in something else there. So my other question was, if we do dig up people's driveway, we're not responsible to return it to the state that it was on the public lands?
If it's asphalt, we will return it back to asphalt. However, if it's aggregate, gold brick pavers, any number of different types of material, this provides the municipality with a cushion that would prevent exorbitant costs.
Is that fair to the property owner? Through no fault of his own, he gets his gold bricks dug up.
Is it fair to the rest of the municipality to pay for a unique driveway?
Why does it need to be dug up again?
For emergency water main breaks, for the installation of new utilities, etc. It is the public realm. And again, it's standard in most municipalities.
Yeah. Okay, well, I mean, I'll just point that out, so somebody's got a nice interlock brick driveway to the street. I can think of 10. If we fix it, if we dig it up to fix a pipe, we ain't putting it back. That's not going to be very popular.
Hell of a lot easier to fix a brick.
Then asphalt.
Locking
yeah.
brick than asphalt.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
there's certainly a lot less consequence to lifting them up and digging down and putting them back. Like, to me, that doesn't make sense.
It's a protection measure for extraordinary cases. If the cost for asphalt is higher than the pavers, then our option will be to choose the pavers.
Okay. All good?
Yeah.
Call the question? You ready? All in favour? Opposed? That carries.
I hope you never dig up my concrete driveway.
I hope you do dig up my asphalt driveway because it could use it. TLC.
Yeah, there's a lot of blood about it anymore.
Do you got rebar in yours as well?
Alrighty.
Okay, this is. I would move that we. No, let's whip through the correspondence really fast. Ron, do your thing.
Lord, give me strength. Okay. Now we're done. Done to this, then we're gonna blow down. General correspondence, invasive species. This is, as Sean has put on the bottom right-hand corner of the pages following, is page 1. This is a non-resident that wrote to the village, asking us what our policy on alligator holly is. My suggestion is that staff take 30 seconds and respond back at their leisure.
Just by email? Yep.
Email.
Fred?
We have John Romsey as a representative of the invasive species. Maybe just refer them to her. Would that be easier?
I think I prefer the official word going out.
I just came to council.
Yeah. So, Nye, can you take care of that?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
Got that?
Item 2, This is Vancouver Coastal Health. Anyhow, page 2, it's the Active Communities Grant, the opportunities for $30,000. Quite candidly, in my view, the must-have criteria are too extensive, and ultimately the grant opportunity for our small neighborhood doesn't really fit. My recommendation would be no response.
No action, no response, good.
Nope.
Yep.
Number 3, Canadian Poverty Reduction Strategy. This is something that gives an awareness to submit. Together here.
Poverty reduction strategy.
Thank you, and which we do no response. Thank you, Carl.
Yep.
Number 4, MLA Pim's commentary on land use by the Minister of Aboriginal Relations. No response on that
Well,
one.
no, hang on a second. I don't want to go that fast because I see there's 9 ridings out of the 80, 9 ridings out of however many ridings there are in the province, and we're one of them, where there are these NOIs, Notice of Intents. Do we not want to know what those are? Just to check that we're in no way impacted?
I thought he said is what in this is that once a NOI has been established, it is nearly impossible for another ministry, so it's already done.
Well, if that's the case, we want to know about it even more.
Okay, so
So can we ask for a staff report? I think it's, Peter, how would you even, this is probably a database,
I'm
right?
not quite sure what
Okay.
the avenues for.
But I think it behooves us to know
okay,
if there's NOIs within Lions Bay or even close to Lions Bay.
all concur. Yes, thank you.
So, staff report?
Staff report in due course. And however, I'm sure you're going to be asking us next week how we follow this.
No, I know, because they're going into
You know
that
how
thing.
they follow this. The LMLGA call for resolution.
Oh, you missed one.
Did I see this guy?
The highway thing.
Former lead architect, and Carl's already responded.
Responded and has been responded to by Modi, so
Double
it's
NR, it's
done.
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 The LMLGA call for resolutions.
I move we do nothing. Move
We
on.
do nothing and
Sorry,
move
just-
on.
sorry.
Self-explanatory.
Peter's got something.
Just wondering whether this would be an ideal place for council to consider endorsing the mayor's speed over distance plan and sending a resolution to the Lower Mainland Local Government Association to consider it. If they support it, then it would have the support of the LMLGA when it goes to UBCM. If it doesn't, then it wouldn't stand a chance on the floor of UBCM. But if it does, then maybe you get people talking about it.
Let me just postpone for a second while I quickly look at page 10 to see when the deadline is. Friday, March 24th. The deadline for submissions is February, March 24th.
So it's just a case of staff writing a gold star resolution.
Done.
You know what that is?
Um,
I saw that and I
so-
thought, what the heck's that?
But actually, the resolution would have to be written for you
Okay,
to endorse
there we
it.
go.
Do you need a council resolution to make the resolution?
Well, no, you need a resolution in front of you to approve.
Let's,
Sorry.
yeah, that would have been a good idea,
Too
actually.
bad, didn't see this soon enough, sorry.
You're jamming this. I think we're short. No time.
Yeah,
Done.
this is one that,
One slip by.
it's
It's a good thought, Peter.
maybe next year.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
See how far you get.
See how far I get.
Through the official channels first.
Would you like a bet?
Hey, good. Carl, remember this for next year. Youth and Child Exploitation, G7, page 20. This is a non-resident endeavoring to traffic with every community in BC. Commendable work, but in our case, NR, no response.
Yeah.
Fascinating, and that G8. The boycott, title is Boycott of Wood Fiber LNG's Environmental Assessment, page 23. To me, it's an awareness by the Sea to Sky folks of the wood fiber LNG lobbyist contribution to the BC Liberal Party. Interesting, but NR, no response.
If there's an ask, I don't see it.
I didn't see it either, and they copied the invoice. The filming on the North Shore, and this came from Mr. starts with W.
Weisbaum.
If anybody who in council knows him,
He's local. He's a resident.
who knows him?
I don't know him, but I know of him.
Anybody know him? No? I will email him and say thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, and that would be it.
Thank you. So, motion to receive correspondence and a second. Any further discussion? All in favour? Opposed? Carried.
What was the ask for R1?
What's R1?
Ron will email and say thank you.
Ria, Councillor McLaughlin. So that goes into that table, right?
I'll write and copy you, Sean.
Okay, beauty. And now we will move on to new business. Is there any, Peter?
Yep. What you brought out of closed?
Thank you. So,
Pause for a minute.
yeah, remind me. I mean, I know we brought it out of close. What are we going to do about it? Cheers, Ian. Thanks.
What you would indicate is that we have a report that was in closed. It's been brought out of closed because it didn't need to be there now. And it's to do with the Clean Water Wastewater Fund agreement, and then I'll introduce the report again.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yellow becomes white.
Fine. So, Peter, this is your report. Would you care to get the bottle of champagne that you have hidden under the table, I hope, out and present the report?
So, this is a request for decision that the CAO be authorized to execute and return the shared cost agreement between the province and the Village of Lions Bay for the water storage facility project, having to do with the Clean Water Wastewater Fund agreement, for which we have been granted $1.355 million by the federal government and $894,630 by the province for replacement of our water storage tanks.
Well done. Well done.
We get our money back.
In addition to authorizing me to execute the agreement, that staff, secondly, begin preparation of a request for proposal for engineering and project management of the CWF water storage facility project, and thirdly, that staff begin to prepare the necessary paperwork to process the first draw on the Infrastructure Master Plan Financing Loan Authorization Bylaw number 508/2016 for the municipality's share of the total projected cost, which amounts to $460,870. I must sign this agreement and deliver
Yeah,
it
like yesterday, Friday.
no later than Friday, but we'll do, Thursday. We'll do it tomorrow, or tonight,
Assuming it's approved.
and assuming it's approved. And so the key dates are set out in the schedules to the agreement, which is attached to the report.
Yeah.
And which will be published on the website as an on-table item, both the report and the agreement. And upon execution of the agreement, they'll be sending us a big chunk of money to get things rolling.
I see that. They pay you money up front.
Mm-hmm.
That's not normal?
It's a change in
Yeah.
policy.
Yeah, it's better than the Build Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to cash flow it yourself.
It's actually 80% of the provincial money
Yeah,
you get up front.
I assume it's not. Okay, so can I ask for a motion in that recommendation? Thanks, and a second. Discussion? The only discussion item I had was the timeline is very short. I mean, the project has to be completed by March 31st, 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now, didn't we already authorize you to get the plans done?
You've authorized me to get a water modeling done, which is the first step. Had we not had that, we would be another 3 months delayed, at least.
Okay, so that's, and where is that?
We have the data, the report will be probably another month, but we have the data to initiate the project.
Okay, you better crack the whip there then, right? Is that on the critical path to getting the design done?
Absolutely, yeah.
As I understand it, if I read all this voluminous paperwork, the grant covers the design as well.
Correct.
That's new as well, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
How much better could it be?
Oh, well, if it had been 100%, but
Well,
They want us to have some skin in the game, I guess, to keep us honest. Okay, so there's a second motion on the table. Any further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favour? Opposed? That carries. Woohoo! Now, I was thinking, man, he's already busy. Now he's really going to be busy.
Project manager.
No snow.
Well, that's allowed.
No, it's in there. It's in the budget.
It's in there, it's included.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we talked
That's
about
what the
that.
RFP will be for.
Yeah.
You know, to hire a mini
Would that project manager be doing just this project, or
Yeah, it would be specific to be,
but it's got to
eligible.
mesh in with a whole, yeah, I know, but it's got to mesh in with a whole bunch of other projects as well, or does it? No. So now, in terms of the application that we didn't get, the PRV application, if we had had a choice, would this have been the choice?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the tanks are crumbling.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the PRVs are fine like they are, but they're
Yes.
just not.
They're on a regular maintenance schedule.
Yeah, yeah. These tanks will be fully skated into the system.
Correct.
Perfect. Such tanks as we end up needing from the water study. Any preliminary hints? No.
Preliminary indications is that the highway tank is not needed.
We'll keep it anyway.
That's good.
Just keeps getting better for you, doesn't it?
Am I gonna hear I told
No,
you
you're
so?
not. No, you're not gonna. No.
Apparently you've got 3 minutes to close, I'm not going for an extension.
Okay, because I didn't tell you so. I only asked because I didn't know. That's all fantastic. Congratulations to staff. So this is going to be quite the mayor's message this Friday, with lots of Christmas stocking type stuff. So well done. I'm very pleased. So where are we on the agenda?
13?
13. Public questions and comments. There being none, we'll move on to. Do we need to close the meeting now, or is this,
No.
or this,
No, we're done.
so we'll need a motion to amend the agenda. Thanks, I see it, and a second. All in favour. So that leads us to skipping item 15 straight to adjournment. Motion to adjourn. All in favour. Opposed. That carries. Yeah, that's man alive.